mifepristone ruling will come down tonight. That is, it's unclear whether there's going to be any type of like written decision. I would imagine not, although
shadow docket.
Well, or it's possible that that's it. They can just sort of say like, we're going to, permanently stay the decision from the Fifth Circuit. It's unclear, particularly in like an emergency situation like this. But the implications of them overriding the assessment by the FDA is, in addition to the implications in terms of abortion access, the implications for the FDA, the EPA, the SEC, we can go on and on, to do their jobs is just... So I hope that the reason why there was a sort of an extension on the deadline was a function of them writing a decision to sort of like, make it clear that they don't have the ability to override an FDA. But who knows?
Well,
it could be the opposite.
It could, the Friday news dump element makes me feel like it could be the opposite. The fact that they would be that's usually when they want to put out news where they bury it. And I don't know. The right has wanted to undercut the administrative state for some time, and the fact that they're able to kind of do this. Well, first they did it with that West Virginia decision, right, with the EPA, and now this is another attack on it. It's on its face, of course, it's an attack on the abortion pill. But as you say, Sam, and the broader implications for courts being able to do whatever they want, override agencies' authority, that's even potentially scarier because of the precedent.
Meanwhile, if you have ever had any questions as to what is the genesis of the desire to control women's bodies relative to abortion, if you have ever had any questions as to what's the relationship between the patriarchy and the anti-LGBTQ impulse of the conservative movement, what is the relationship between abortion and sexuality, as opposed to abortion and simply an innocent life? If you've ever had any of those questions, let this very brief clip from the judge, Matthew Kacsmaryk, who made the initial ruling about mifepristone. This is him calling into a radio show in 2014. People are going to talk about this as one of the other things that he did not disclose. When you get a federal judgeship or when you're confirmed, you're supposed to disclose any conversations or writing that you have done publicly, anything publicly you have put out there relative to issues that may have legal import. But put aside the fact that he didn't disclose this and he didn't disclose his law review writing and he hid it. This just gives you a sense of what is driving all of this. It is all about a religious fundamentalism and their worldview as to the role of men and women and what a family is or is not, according to them.
Yeah, and I just want to make very clear, people who experience the same-sex attraction are not responsible individually or solely for the atmosphere of the sexual revolution. It's a long time coming. It came after no-fault divorce. It came after we implemented very permissive policies on contraception. The sexual revolution has gone through several phases. We just happen to be at the phase now where same-sex marriage is at the fore.
It's a very brief passage, but understand what he's saying here. He's not blaming just gay people for these problems. And to be clear, he also does not believe that people can be gay.
Mm-hmm. He's not blaming them for being sick.
They experience same-sex attraction. In other words, they're not gay. They're just having a problem in which they cannot suppress their desires. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I'm not I'm just somebody who can't, suppress my desires, as opposed to being, I'm born gay, or I'm, born bi, I'm on, my sexuality is on a spectrum. He will not, that does not exist. It is just as somebody who is sinning. That's all. The idea that we're having these issues here. Play it one more time, because I want people to listen to this, that, and understand the idea of like permissive contraceptive use.
And no fault divorce. No fault divorce, meaning that women were able to leave marriages that were abusive, as opposed to, the hurdles that they would have to go through in the 50s and 60s to leave their marriages. Indeed. You're good.
Yeah, and I just want to make very clear, people who experience the same-sex attraction are not responsible individually or solely for the atmosphere of the sexual revolution.
All right, pause it here. Now, okay, so he's saying it's not just, pause it here. Pause it here.
It came after
Sorry, one second.
We implemented.
Oh, yeah.
He's saying that people who experience same sexual attraction, they're not solely responsible for the sexual revolution. What is the sexual revolution? What is the thing that happened in the sexual revolution? Women were emancipated. They were allowed to register to vote in their maiden name. They were allowed to have a credit card, even if they were married. They were allowed to say no legally under the law to their husbands as to when or whether they wanted to have sex. Mm-hmm. They were given an opportunity to earn at least close to, depending on your definition, to begin, let's say, the process of trying to earn equal amount in the workplace as to what men. It wasn't until 25 years after the sexual revolution in 1994 that there was government-sponsored research into women's health, specifically in their bodies. Not till 1994. And all of this, he's saying, you can't just blame gay people for this, although he doesn't believe in the existence of gay people. He goes on to say it is permissive contraception. Go ahead, play the rest of this.
People who experience the same-sex attraction are not responsible individually or solely for the atmosphere of the sexual revolution. It's a long time coming. It came after no-fault divorce. It came after we implemented very permissive policies on contraception. The sexual revolution has gone through several phases. We just happen to be at the phase now where same-sex marriage is at the fore.
So this was in response, obviously, to marriage equality, which, of course, he'll get around to.
Mm-hmm. But you see how they see all these things as connected.
Yep.
I mean that any deviation from the patriarchal structure, the sexual revolution where he's talking about that there's, as you say, Sam, when women had more economic opportunity, were able to enter into the workforce, were able to have their own power in an imbalanced power relationship. That is what he is weeping about us not having anymore. A system in which women did not have the ability to have their own agency and thus were more subject to, say, marital rape, to control, to men being able to do what they wanted, and women had to be at their beck and call. That's what they want to return to. And when there are more open conversations about gender and sexuality, it undercuts the very narrow confines that they want people to slot into. And so that's why they see these things as connected. And like the ruling that he handed down was just copy and pasted with conspiracy theories about mifepristone side effects that aren't based in reality. And the point is, like, I don't even know if that guy kind of believes that stuff, right?
No, I don't
because
think he
it
has an
doesn't
agenda.
matter.
Exactly.
He's doing God's will, so
Exactly.
everything is justified in achieving that.
Yes, and to be clear too, listen to the way that he talks about permissive. He says we've been too permissive about contraceptive.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the we? Who's the we that gives permission to the who? Right? I mean, this is we as men. Let's be clear. He's talking about white men. Allowed women to have access to contraceptive too easily. Because it both reinforces his perspective on what the dynamic should be in society, and also laments the fact that we are not able to leverage our ability. I mean, all of this stuff is just, it's wrapped up in one thing. Because you start to see pregnancy not as a question of even sexuality, but of control. Because if we allow women, we're too permissive with women in terms of their birth control. And part of that permissiveness also is, no consent and no fault divorce. Mm-hmm. And everything that came about in the so-called sexual revolution, like a husband can now legally be responsible for raping his wife. I mean, put this together, you start to realize, and when they say, like, you can't have sex without consequences, this is a method of control for these people. It is, I impregnate my wife. She has no legal right to question that, and she has no access to contraception, and that is that I control all of that.
Yeah, she's a vessel for me.
On that.
She's a vessel for my godly child, and that's how I'm going to control every aspect of that. That's why they don't come for condoms. That's why, I mean, because then the man has control over that. They come first for abortion, then for the abortion pill, then for the morning after pill, then for IUDs, then for every other kind of contraception that is in the woman's control, where she might be able to take a birth control pill and not have her husband know about it. That's the stuff that they come after first. That's not a coincidence. That is because this is a patriarchal power play from the start. Always has been. And again, like when we signed legislation in the Civil Rights Act, the right wing needed a new movement to galvanize around, and it in part was backlash against the sexual revolution and the liberation of women. And all of this stuff is a continuation of that historically. We're still living in it. Totally. So